Welcome, traveler of time. You've entered a realm where kings rise, empires fall, and every crown carries a curse. Today, we journey through the life of one of history's most fascinating monarchs, where love, power, and destiny intertwine. Rome, the eternal city, where marble and ambition stood side by side, and every heartbeat echoed with the promise of empire. But on a day that would shake the world, March 15th, 44 BC, the mighty Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul and ruler of Rome, walked into the Senate and never walked out again. Why would the most powerful man on earth, a man hailed as a god in life, be struck down by his own friends? And how did this single act of betrayal, the assassination of Julius Caesar, mark the death of a republic and the birth of an empire? This is not just the story of a man's murder. It is the tale of ambition without restraint, loyalty turned to treason, and the moment destiny itself held its breath. Before the blood and betrayal, there was a young man from an old but fading patrician family, Gaius Julius Caesar. Born in 100 BC, amid the chaos of a decaying republic, his destiny was shaped not by privilege, but by survival. When he was 16, his father died suddenly. Caesar became the head of his family, too young, too ambitious, and too dangerous to ignore. He married Cornelia, the daughter of a powerful rival, defying the dictator Sulla, who demanded the marriage be annulled. Caesar refused. For that defiance, he was marked for death. Forced into exile, he hid among soldiers and deserts, hunted like prey. Yet even then, he said, "A man should fear nothing if his cause is just." That cause, his rise, would never end until the world itself bowed before him. He returned to Rome, not as a fugitive, but as a rising star, a master of words, of charm, and of strategy. He climbed through every rank, priest, general, consul, weaving alliances with the likes of Pompey the Great and Crassus, the richest man in Rome. Together, they formed the First Triumvirate, a pact that would secretly control the Republic. But alliances forged in ambition burn the hottest and die the fastest. Caesar's victories in Gaul turned him into a legend. For 8 years, his legions thundered across Europe, conquering tribes, crossing rivers no Roman had dared to cross. He wrote of his own battles, not as reports, but as poetry of conquest. And as gold and glory flowed into Rome, so did whispers. Was Caesar still a man, or was he becoming a god? When Crassus fell in battle and Pompey turned his allegiance to the Senate, Caesar's path to power became a march toward civil war. The Senate, fearful of his influence, ordered him to disband his legions and return to Rome as a private citizen. But Caesar, standing on the banks of the Rubicon River, looked at the waters before him, the boundary he was forbidden to cross with an army, and whispered, "The die is cast." When his legions marched south, the Republic trembled. Pompey fled. The Senate followed. Caesar entered Rome unopposed, not as a conqueror, but as destiny incarnate. He pursued Pompey to Greece, crushed him at Pharsalus, and watched as his former ally was murdered in Egypt. Standing before the lifeless head of Pompey, Caesar wept, for in killing his rival, Rome had slain its last illusion of freedom. Back in Rome, the people hailed him dictator for life. Laurels adorned his brow, gold glittered at his feet. But beneath the marble celebrations, envy festered. The Senate, once the heart of the Republic, now stood as a shadow under his rule. He reformed laws, rebuilt cities, and planned conquests beyond imagination, even dreaming of war with Parthia and the East. But power had changed him. He began to speak of kingship, a word that made Rome shudder. For centuries, Romans had sworn never again to bow to a king. And yet Caesar wore the crown in all but name. At festivals, he sat upon a golden throne. His statues were raised among the gods. He renamed months, rebuilt calendars, rewrote destiny. To the people, he was the savior. To the Senate, he was the end of Rome itself. Whispers became conspiracies. Old allies turned shadows. And the word began to spread. He must be stopped. It was the morning of the Ides of March. The air was heavy with omens. The soothsayer's warning, Calpurnia's dream of blood, the beasts that would not eat. But Caesar, in all his pride, dismissed them. Cowards die many times before their deaths, he said. The valiant never taste death but once. He left his home, his wife's pleas unanswered, and walked toward the theater of Pompey, where the Senate now met. Inside, senators waited, men he had raised, men he had trusted. Among them, Brutus, the son of a lover, almost like a son to Caesar himself, and Cassius, driven by envy, convinced that Rome's freedom lay in Caesar's blood. When Caesar entered, they surrounded him in ceremony, a show of honor masking betrayal. As he took his seat, the daggers came out. The first blow struck his neck, confusion erupted, and in the chaos, steel flashed and bodies pressed close. 23 times the blades fell, and when Caesar saw Brutus's face among them, his final words, not of rage, but heartbreak, whispered through history. Et tu, Brute? Then silence. The greatest man Rome had ever known fell at the feet of a statue, the statue of Pompey. His blood pooled at the base, as if Rome herself demanded payment for every crown ever worn. The assassins stepped back, expecting cheers of liberation. But outside, the people screamed, not in joy but fury, for they had not killed tyrant. They had slain their god. Rome awoke that day without its ruler and without its republic. The conspirators fled, believing they had saved liberty. But instead, they had unleashed vengeance. From the blood of Caesar rose new titans, Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, who forged the second triumvirate, hunting every assassin to the ends of the earth. Brutus and Cassius would die by their own hands, their dreams of freedom crushed beneath the same power they sought to preserve. And in the ashes of that chaos, Octavian, Caesar's heir, would rise as Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The Republic was gone forever. The empire had begun. Yet even as centuries passed, Caesar's shadow remained, whispered in every palace, carved in every crown, and feared by every ruler who dared to reach too far. He was not just a man, he was the turning point of history. The day he fell, the ancient world ended, and a new one began. His assassins killed his body, but his name, Caesar, would live for 1,000 years. In Kaiser, in Tsar, in every title that sought to capture the echo of absolute power. And so, the assassination of Julius Caesar was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of empire, of destiny, of the eternal curse that power always brings. Centuries later, the echoes of the assassination of Julius Caesar still haunt the ruins of history. If stories like this fascinate you, don't forget to like and subscribe. More untold tales of history await you.